Every UFC division develops its own identity. Some are defined by dominant champions, others by constant turnover, but every once in a while a division reaches a point where nearly every contender feels like a legitimate threat. That's where the UFC's Flyweight division is today. If ever there was a division that proves that becoming champion and staying champion are two completely different challenges, it's the UFC's Flyweight division. Over the past year, Joshua Van has gone from one of the division's brightest prospects to the man sitting on the throne. It wasn't a slow climb either. After suffering the first loss of his UFC career against Charles Johnson, Van responded exactly how you'd hope a future champion would. He rattled off 3 straight victories, knocked out Bruno Silva, and accepted a short notice opportunity against a former title challenger, Brandon Royval, when Manel Kape was forced out of the fight due to an injury back in June of 2025. He didn't just survive the opportunity, he won a unanimous decision and immediately put himself in front of the title picture. His championship victory, however, came under circumstances nobody wanted to see. Alexandre Pantoja suffered an elbow injury less than a minute into their fight, forcing the bout to end before it had a chance to answer the biggest question in the division. Joshua Van left with the belt, but the matchup itself remained unfinished. If there were ever any doubts about whether Van belonged as a champion, his first title defense answered a lot of them. Against Tatsuro Taira, Van faced exactly the kind of challenge critics believe would give him problems. Taira secured takedowns early and repeatedly forced the fight into grappling exchanges, but every time he got Van to the mat, Van found a way back to his feet. Once the fight returned to striking range, the momentum shifted. Van's pace, pressure, and boxing steadily wore Taira down until he ultimately finished him in the 5th round. It wasn't a flawless performance, but it showed that even without elite offensive wrestling or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Van has become remarkably effective at keeping the fights where he's most dangerous. That's what makes the current state of flyweight so compelling. Joshua Van has proven that he's a legitimate UFC champion, but at the same time, the division's biggest question still hasn't been answered. Alexandre Pantoja is healthy again, and a rematch is reportedly in the works. If it happens, we'll finally get to see the fight we were supposed to see the first time, a former champion still performing at an elite level against the new king who has spent the past year proving he belongs. The state of the UFC Flyweight division is this: the champion is legit, but the throne is anything but secure. One of the easiest ways to judge the health of a division is to look beyond the champion and ask a simple question: how many fighters have a legitimate path to the title? Right now, the UFC's Flyweight division has one of the strongest answers in the sport. According to the Fighter Index, Alexandre Pantoja remains the division's lone S-tier fighter. Even without the championship around his waist, his skill set still represents the benchmark for the rest of the division. He's the most complete flyweight in the world, and the fact that he's chasing the belt instead of defending it says a lot about how competitive this weight class has become. But what really separates flyweight isn't just the fighter at the top, it's the group directly beneath him. Joshua Van, Brandon Royval, Manel Kape, Asu Almabayev, Kyoji Horiguchi, Tatsuro Taira. Every one of them brings a championship caliber skill set, but none of them look the same. This isn't a division where everyone succeeds with the same formula. Some are elite strikers, others rely on relentless wrestling, dangerous scrambles, or complete well-rounded games. That stylistic diversity makes the road to the title incredibly difficult because every contender asks a completely different question once the cage door closes. I think the most fascinating part of the division is that the champion isn't the highest rated fighter in the Fighter Index, meaning he doesn't have the most well-rounded skill set. Normally, you'd expect the belt to sit with the most complete athlete in the weight class. Flyweight challenges that assumption. Joshua Van has shown that a fighter doesn't have to be the most complete to be the most effective. His rise to the top is proof that knowing your strengths and consistently forcing opponents to fight your fight can outweigh a broader skill set. That's why the flyweight division feels so different from many of the other UFC's weight classes. There isn't one dominant force towering over the field. Instead, there's an elite cluster of contenders, each with a realistic path to becoming champion depending on the matchup in front of them. This isn't a one-man division, it's one of the deepest and most competitive divisions in the UFC. Every division in the UFC develops its own identity over time. Heavyweights can often get away with a single mistake or specialize in a single skill because one punch or one takedown into a submission can end the fight. Lightweight rewards well-roundedness, bantamweight demands elite athleticism, but flyweight's different. More than any other men's division, flyweight rewards fighters who can adapt. At 125 pounds, every champion and every contender is technically skilled. That means winning usually isn't about having one overwhelming advantage, it's about making small adjustments over the course of 25 minutes. The fighters who can consistently rise to the top are the ones who solve the problems as the fight unfolds. That starts with pace. The best flyweights don't just fight fast, they maintain that pace from the opening bell until the final horn. A high work rate forces opponents to make more decisions, create more opportunities to capitalize on mistakes, and makes it incredibly difficult to win rounds by doing just one thing well. But pace alone isn't enough. Defensive grappling has become one of the most important skills in the division. Very few elite flyweights can completely shut down takedowns, but the best of them don't have to. They scramble well, they limit control time, get back to their feet, and immediately force opponents back into uncomfortable striking exchanges. The goal isn't necessarily to avoid the takedown, it's to refuse to stay there, and that's why adaptability has become such a defining characteristic of the division. Whether it's a pressure grappler or a volume striker, a scramble specialist, or a complete technician, there isn't one archetype dominating the rankings. Different styles continue to succeed because the best flyweights understand how to impose their strengths while minimizing the opportunities for opponents to exploit their weaknesses. And that's the current meta of the flyweight division. It's not built around one style, it's built around fighters who can adapt, adjust, and consistently fight on their own terms. Joshua Van may be the champion, but the road ahead is anything but easy. One of the biggest reasons the flyweight division is so compelling is that there isn't just one challenger waiting in the wings, there are several, and each presents a completely different stylistic problem. The biggest threat is the most obvious one. Alexandre Pantoja may no longer hold the belt, but he remains the division's only S-tier fighter according to the Fighter Index. More importantly, he never truly had the opportunity to lose his championship inside the cage. The first meeting ended almost as soon as it began, leaving the biggest question in the division unanswered. Now healthy and reportedly on course for a rematch, Pantoja represents the ultimate measuring stick. If Joshua Van wants to erase every remaining doubt about his championship reign, there's no better way to do it than by defeating the man that many consider the division's best and most complete fighter. If Van gets past Pantoja, another killer is already going to be waiting for him. Manel Kape has not so quietly put together a 4-fight winning streak and remains one of the most dangerous strikers in the division. Unlike many of Van's recent opponents, Kape has the speed, power, and explosiveness to meet him on the feet rather than forcing grappling exchanges. It's the kind of matchup that could produce one of the highest level striking battles the flyweight division's seen in years. Then there's Asu Almabayev. While Kape tests Van's boxing, Almabayev poses a completely different threat to him. His relentless wrestling and pressure are designed to force opponents into uncomfortable positions and keep them there. Against Tatsuro Taira, Van showed that getting taken down isn't necessarily enough to beat him. Almabayev's challenge is whether he can do what others haven't, turn those takedowns into sustained control. And Brendan Royval can't be overlooked either. Even though Van earned a unanimous decision over Royval on short notice, Royval remains one of the division's most dangerous scramblers and is coming off a third-round submission win over Lonnie Kavanaugh. In a division this competitive, one impressive performance is all it takes to work your way back into title contention. In the men's flyweight division, as we sit right now, there isn't one clear next challenger other than Pantoja. There are multiple elite contenders, each equipped with a completely different path to victory, whether it's Pantoja's completeness, Kape's striking, Almabayev's wrestling, or Royval's unpredictability. Every title defense presents Joshua Van with a new puzzle to solve. Every champion has challengers. Flyweight gives its champion a different challenge every single time. If the present state of the flyweight division is fascinating, the future might be even better. Everything begins with what appears to be the inevitable rematch between Joshua Van and Alexandre Pantoja. Their first meeting ended before it could determine a clear winner. This time, assuming both men make it to the octagon healthy, there's going to be nowhere to hide. We're going to get some answers. If Van wins, he'll have defeated the man many consider the division's most complete fighter and remove the biggest question mark surrounding his championship reign. If Pantoja regains the belt, he'll remind everyone why he ruled the division in the first place and immediately reshape the title picture. Beyond that, the line of contenders is already forming. Manel Kape has positioned himself as perhaps the next man in line with a 4-fight winning streak, while Asu Almabayev continues to build momentum with 3 consecutive wins of his own. Neither fighter has an easy claim to the next title shot just yet, but both have done enough to make themselves impossible to ignore. Whoever leaves the championship fight with the belt won't have much time to celebrate before the next title challenger is decided on and scheduled. And the division isn't just strong at the top. A new generation's already emerging. Fighters like Ramazan Timarov, Alden Koria, Ray Sururia, Tagir Ulanbekov are steadily working their way up, hoping to become the next name to enter the rankings and eventually into title contention. Some will fall short, others will break through, but together they ensure the division isn't simply maintaining its current level, it's continuing to evolve. That's what makes flyweight one of the UFC's healthiest divisions. The championship picture is unresolved, the contenders are legitimate, the next wave of talent is already arriving. No matter who holds the belt a year from now, the competition isn't going anywhere. The future of the flyweight division isn't about one fighter, it's about a division that's built to keep producing meaningful championship fights for years to come. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments where you think the flyweight division is right now. Catch you on the next one.